The morning sun struggled to break through the thick gray clouds hanging over London. Inside Kensington Palace, Catherine sat by the window of her private sitting room, watching the rain trace patterns down the glass. Her hands rested gently on her lap, still trembling slightly from the news she had received just hours earlier. The phone call had come at dawn. Her private secretary's voice was careful, measured, but Catherine could hear the weight behind the words. The latest medical reports were not what anyone had hoped for. The treatment was taking longer than expected, and the road ahead looked more uncertain than ever. William found her there an hour later, still in the same position, still staring out at the gray morning. He didn't say anything at first. After 15 years of marriage, he knew when words weren't needed. Instead, he simply sat beside her on the small sofa, close enough that their shoulders touched. "The children don't know yet," Catherine whispered, her voice barely audible above the sound of rain against the windows. William nodded slowly. George, Charlotte, and Louis were still sleeping in their rooms down the hall, blissfully unaware that their world was about to change again. The past few months had already been difficult enough for the family. The constant medical appointments, the hushed conversations between their parents, the way their mother sometimes looked tired even when she smiled. "We'll tell them together," William said softly, "when you're ready." Catherine turned to look at her husband. His face showed the strain of the past weeks, the lines around his eyes deeper than she remembered. He had been her rock through everything, never once showing doubt or fear in front of her, even though she knew he felt both. "I keep thinking about your mother," Catherine said suddenly. How brave she was, how she faced everything with such grace. William's expression softened. Diana had faced her own battles, different ones, but battles nonetheless. She had shown the world that royalty didn't mean immunity from pain or struggle. If anything, it meant carrying those burdens while millions watched. "She would be proud of you," William said, taking Catherine's hand in his. "She would tell you that strength isn't about never falling down. It's about getting back up, especially when people are watching." Outside, London was beginning to wake up. The city that had followed Catherine's journey from a commoner to a princess, from a young bride to a mother of 3, had no idea that she was facing the biggest challenge of her life. Social media was full of speculation about why her public appearances had been reduced. Newspapers were printing theories and rumors, most of them wrong, some of them hurtful. Catherine stood up and walked to her desk, where a stack of letters waited. Her staff had been screening her mail more carefully lately, but they still brought her the personal ones. Letters from children who had made her drawings. Notes from grandmothers who wanted to share their own stories. Messages from people who had faced similar battles and wanted to offer hope. She picked up one letter, written in careful handwriting on simple paper. It was from a woman named Margaret in Yorkshire, who had gone through cancer treatment the year before. "Your Royal Highness," it began. "I don't know if you'll ever read this, but I wanted you to know that you're not alone. When I was scared, I thought about how you always smile when you meet people, how you make everyone feel special. That gave me strength. Now I want to give some back to you." Tears filled Catherine's eyes as she read. This was what she had been afraid of losing. Not the titles or the palaces or the public attention, but this connection with people, the ability to make a difference even in small ways, the chance to show that royalty could be real, could be human, could be vulnerable. William appeared beside her, reading over her shoulder. "There are hundreds more like that," he said quietly. "People who care about you, not because of your title, but because of who you are." Catherine folded the letter carefully and placed it back on the pile. "I don't want to disappoint them." "You won't," William said firmly. "But first, you need to take care of yourself. The rest will follow." The decision they were about to make wasn't easy. Going public with her health battle would mean giving up privacy at a time when she most needed it. It would mean facing questions and speculation and judgment. It would mean showing the world that even princesses could be frightened and uncertain. But it would also mean being honest. It would mean showing other people facing similar battles that they weren't alone. It would mean using her platform for something that mattered more than ribbon cuttings and charity galas. Catherine walked back to the window. The rain had stopped, and weak sunlight was beginning to filter through the clouds. In the distance, she could see people starting their day, walking to work, taking children to school, living their normal lives. Soon, some of those lives would be touched by her story. Some of those people would find comfort in knowing that struggle was universal, that hope was always possible. She thought about her children, still sleeping upstairs. What kind of mother did she want to be to them? What kind of lesson did she want to teach them about facing difficult times? She realized that hiding from this challenge wouldn't protect them. It would only teach them that problems should be hidden away, that vulnerability was weakness. "We'll make the announcement next week," Catherine said, turning back to William. Her voice was steadier now, more determined. "But we'll do it our way. Honest but hopeful, real but not dramatic." William smiled for the first time that morning. This was the Catherine he had fallen in love with all those years ago. The woman who faced challenges head-on, who cared more about doing the right thing than taking the easy path. As they sat together planning how to share their news with the world, neither of them could imagine how their decision would touch millions of lives. They couldn't know that their quiet courage would inspire people in hospital beds and doctors' offices around the globe. They only knew that they had each other, they had their family, and they had a choice to make about how to face what came next. The morning sun finally broke through the clouds completely, flooding the room with warm, golden light. The palace press office had seen many challenging days, but the atmosphere that Tuesday morning was different. Senior communications staff gathered in the conference room, their usual efficiency tempered by the gravity of what they were about to help orchestrate. They had handled royal births, deaths, scandals, and celebrations, but this felt more personal somehow. Catherine insisted on writing the statement herself. She sat in her study with a simple notebook, drafting and redrafting the words that would change everything. How do you tell the world that you're fighting for your life without causing panic? How do you ask for privacy while being completely public? How do you balance honesty with hope? "The Princess of Wales has been diagnosed with cancer," she wrote, then crossed it out. Too stark. Too frightening. She tried again. "After recent medical tests, doctors have advised that the Princess of Wales will be undergoing preventive treatment. Better, but not complete." William found her there hours later, surrounded by crumpled papers and empty teacups. He could see the frustration in her posture, the way she held her pen like it weighed 100 pounds. "Maybe we should ask someone else to write it," he suggested gently. Catherine shook her head. "No, this is my story, my words. People deserve to hear it from me." She had watched other public figures handle similar announcements. Some had been clinical and distant, hiding behind medical terminology and spokesperson statements. Others had been so dramatic that the focus shifted from the illness to the publicity. Catherine wanted something different. She wanted to sound like herself talking to a friend. Down the hall, their children were having breakfast, unaware that their mother was crafting words that would soon be read by millions. Catherine and William had talked to them the night before, explaining in simple terms that Mummy wasn't feeling well and would need to see doctors for a while. The children had asked questions with the pure logic of youth. Would the doctors make her better? Yes, they hoped so. Would she still be able to read bedtime stories? Of course. Would there still be pancakes on Sunday mornings? Absolutely. Charlotte, ever perceptive at 9 years old, had studied her mother's face carefully. "Mummy, are you scared?" Catherine had paused, then decided on honesty. "A little bit, sweetheart. But I'm also brave, and I have Daddy and you and George and Louie to help me be even braver." Now, as she worked on the public statement, Catherine remembered that conversation. Maybe that was the tone she needed. Not the formal language of palace announcements, but the honest words of a mother explaining something difficult to people she cared about. She started writing again, this time in her own voice. "In January, I underwent major abdominal surgery in London, and at the time, it was thought that my condition was non-cancerous. The surgery was successful. However, tests after the operation found cancer had been present." The words flowed more easily now. She wrote about the shock, about taking time to process and explain things to George, Charlotte, and Louis. She wrote about the excellent medical team caring for her, about beginning preventive chemotherapy treatment. She wrote about drawing strength from her family and from knowing she was not alone. The most important part came at the end. She wanted people to know that she was getting better, that she was hopeful, that this wasn't a tragedy but a challenge she intended to meet head-on. "My work has always brought me a deep sense of joy, and I look forward to being back when I am able. But for now, I must focus on making a full recovery." When she finished, Catherine read the statement aloud to William. Her voice wavered only once when she got to the part about telling their children. William reached for her hand and squeezed it gently. "It's perfect," he said. "It's you." The decision about how to release the statement was crucial. Traditional royal announcements came through Buckingham Palace in formal typed releases. But Catherine wanted something more personal. She wanted to look into a camera and speak directly to people, to let them see her face and hear her voice and know that she was okay. The video was filmed in the garden behind their home at Adelaide Cottage in Windsor. Catherine chose the location carefully, somewhere private and peaceful with spring flowers blooming in the background. She wore a simple striped shirt and cardigan, the kind of outfit she might wear for a school pickup or casual lunch with friends. No tiaras, no formal jewelry, no royal regalia. Just Catherine speaking as one person to another. The filming took several attempts. Not because Catherine stumbled over words or lost her composure, but because the camera crew kept stopping to wipe their own eyes. Her calm strength was evident in every word, but so was her humanity. This was a woman fighting for her health, not a distant royal figure making an announcement. "We need to time this carefully," the press secretary advised. "Friday evening after the stock markets close before the weekend papers go to print. Give people time to process the news when the world isn't moving so fast." But Catherine had a different idea. "Let's release it on Friday afternoon. People will be finishing their work week, maybe picking up children from school, starting their weekends with family. That's when I want them to hear from me, when they're in that space between work and home, when they have time to really listen." The days leading up to the announcement felt suspended in time. Catherine continued her treatment quietly, having blood tests and consultations with doctors who treated her not as the Princess of Wales, but as their patient. She appreciated their professionalism, their refusal to be starstruck or overly careful with her. Dr. Sarah Chen, her oncologist, had been particularly encouraging. "Your prognosis is very good," she had told Catherine during their second meeting. "Preventive treatment after surgery is standard protocol. We're being thorough, not desperate." Those words had given Catherine the confidence to face the cameras with genuine optimism. She wasn't making brave statements about a hopeless situation. She was sharing news about a challenge she expected to overcome. The night before the video was released, Catherine sat with William on their back porch, watching the sunset paint the sky in soft pastels. Tomorrow, everything would change. Tonight, they could still pretend they were just another couple dealing with a health scare in private. "Are you ready for this?" William asked. Catherine considered the question seriously. "I'm ready to stop hiding. I'm ready to be honest. I'm ready to show people that it's okay to be vulnerable and strong at the same time." She thought about all the people who would see her video tomorrow. The cancer patients who would feel less alone. The families struggling with medical uncertainty. The children who would learn that even princesses face scary situations sometimes. The mothers who would see that you can be brave even when you're frightened. "I think I'm ready to help," Catherine said finally. "That's what this is really about. Not me, but what our story might mean to other people." The sun disappeared behind the trees, leaving the garden in gentle twilight. Tomorrow would bring a storm of media attention, public reaction, and global discussion. But tonight was theirs, quiet and peaceful and private, perhaps for the last time in a while. Friday afternoon at 6 p.m. London time, the world stopped. Within minutes of the video being posted on social media and released to news outlets globally, Catherine's face was on television screens, computer monitors, and phone screens in every corner of the planet. Her calm voice speaking about cancer, chemotherapy, and hope echoed through hospital wards, family living rooms, and newsrooms from New York to Sydney. In a small cafe in Manchester, the owner had just turned on the evening news when Catherine's announcement began playing. The dozen customers inside gradually fell silent, their conversations trailing off as they turned toward the screen. An elderly woman sitting near the window put her hand to her heart. "Oh, that poor dear," she whispered. "She's so young, so lovely." But as Catherine continued speaking, something shifted in the room. Her steady composure, her clear voice, the way she looked directly into the camera with genuine warmth. It wasn't the announcement of someone giving up. It was the statement of someone preparing to fight. "She's going to be fine," said a middle-aged man at the counter, his voice full of conviction. "Look at her. She's a warrior." Similar scenes were playing out everywhere. In hospital waiting rooms, Catherine's words provided comfort to families facing their own medical uncertainties. A woman named Emma, waiting for her husband to come out of cancer treatment in Leeds, watched the video on her phone through tears. If she can be that brave on camera in front of the whole world, Emma thought, I can be brave in this waiting room. At St. Thomas's Hospital in London, the oncology ward fell unusually quiet during the evening shift change. Nurses and doctors had gathered around the staff room television, watching their future patient's announcement with professional interest and personal emotion. "Look how she's talking about treatment," observed Dr. Rebecca Martinez, a senior oncologist. "Not as something happening to her, but as something she's actively participating in. That attitude makes all the difference in patient outcomes." The response on social media was immediate and overwhelming. Catherine Courage began trending within an hour. Princess Strong followed shortly after. But it wasn't just hashtags and heart emojis. People were sharing their own stories. Inspired by Catherine's honesty to speak publicly about their battles for the first time, a teacher in Scotland posted a photo of herself ringing the bell at the end of her cancer treatment 6 months earlier. "If the Princess of Wales can tell the whole world about her journey, I can finally tell my students why I was away last year," she wrote. A father in Canada shared a video of his teenage daughter, who had been embarrassed about losing her hair during chemotherapy. After seeing Princess Catherine's announcement, "My daughter said she wants to go back to school without her wig on Monday. She said if princesses can be brave about being sick, so can she." The international response was equally powerful. World leaders who usually communicated through diplomatic channels took to social media with personal messages. The President of France tweeted simply, "Courage, Catherine." The Prime Minister of New Zealand shared a longer message about the importance of early detection and supporting cancer research. But perhaps the most touching responses came from ordinary people who felt personally connected to Catherine through her years of public service. A group of teachers from the school she had visited just months earlier sent a video message of support. "You showed our children that kindness matters," one teacher said. "Now we want to show you that you matter to us." The evening news programs around the world restructured their broadcasts to focus on Catherine's announcement. But the coverage felt different from typical royal reporting. This wasn't about protocol or fashion or official duties. This was human interest journalism at its most genuine. The BBC brought in medical experts to explain preventive chemotherapy in simple terms, helping viewers understand that Catherine's situation was serious but not hopeless. CNN interviewed other public figures who had shared similar health journeys, focusing on the importance of early detection and excellent medical care. In Australia, where Catherine and William had toured as newlyweds, morning show hosts broke down during their live broadcast. "She was so radiant when they visited here," one presenter said through tears. "You could see how much she loved meeting people, especially children. The fact that she's going through this privately, while still thinking about how to help others, it's just extraordinary." The response from cancer charities was immediate and practical. Donations poured into organizations supporting cancer research and patient care. The Macmillan Cancer Support Helpline reported a 300% increase in calls from people seeking information about symptoms and screening. Catherine's announcement had done more than share personal news. It had sparked a global conversation about cancer awareness. At Windsor Castle, Catherine's phone buzzed constantly with messages from friends, family members, and colleagues. She had turned off most notifications, but William filtered through them, sharing the ones he thought would lift her spirits. A text from her brother James. "Proud of you, sis. Mom and Dad are crying happy tears. Happy that you're being so brave and honest." A voice message from her old university roommate. "Kat, I just watched your video with my kids. My 8-year-old said you looked like the bravest person in the world." She's not wrong. An email from a fellow royal from another European country. "Your grace under pressure reminds us all why this role matters. You've turned your private struggle into public hope." That evening, as Catherine sat with her family for a quiet dinner, she felt something she hadn't experienced in months. Peace. Not the absence of worry. She was still facing chemotherapy and uncertainty. But peace about her decision to be honest, to trust people with her vulnerability, to use her platform for something meaningful. George, her eldest at 10 years old, looked up from his pasta. "Mommy, my friend's dad said people all over the world are talking about you being sick." Catherine nodded carefully. "Yes, people are talking about it. Does that worry you?" George thought for a moment. "No, I think it's good. Maybe other kids won't feel so scared if their mums get sick too." Charlotte, ever the diplomat, added, "Plus now everyone knows you're being brave. not just us. Even 6-year-old Lewis contributed his perspective. Will the doctors make you better faster now that everyone's watching? William laughed at his youngest son's logic. That's not quite how it works, Lou. But maybe Mummy feels better knowing that so many people care about her. As they finished dinner and prepared for bedtime routines, Catherine reflected on the day. She had woken up as a private person dealing with a health challenge. She was ending it as someone whose personal journey had become a source of hope for millions of strangers. The weight of that responsibility could have felt crushing. Instead, it felt purposeful. For years, she had searched for ways to use her position to make a real difference in people's lives. She had supported various charities, visited countless organizations, and championed important causes. But none of that had felt as immediately impactful as simply telling the truth about being human, vulnerable and determined to heal. Outside, London settled into evening, but around the world, Catherine's words continued to spread, finding their way to people who needed to hear them most. 3 weeks after the announcement, Catherine sat in the chemotherapy suite at the Royal Marsden Hospital, watching the clear liquid drip steadily through the IV line into her arm. The private room was comfortable and quiet, with large windows overlooking a garden where spring flowers were blooming enthusiastically, despite the gray London weather. She wasn't alone. William sat beside her, laptop open, attempting to work through emails while keeping one eye on his wife. Across the room, her personal protection officer stood discreetly by the door, and her private secretary worked quietly at a small desk, managing the constant flow of well-wishes that continued to pour in from around the world. Another bag from a primary school in Wales, her secretary mentioned, holding up a colorful envelope. The children made you get well cards. There's also a package from a knitting circle in Scotland. They've sent you a blanket they made together. Catherine smiled, though the anti-nausea medication made her feel slightly disconnected from everything. Make sure we respond to all of them, especially the children's cards. They took time to make those. The response to her announcement had been far beyond anything anyone had anticipated. The palace mailroom had been overwhelmed with letters, packages, and flowers. Social media continued to buzz with messages of support. But more importantly, Catherine's honesty had sparked meaningful changes in how people approached their own health challenges. Dr. Chen, her oncologist, had mentioned during their last appointment that several major cancer organizations were reporting increased screening appointments and donations. Your announcement may have saved lives, she had told Catherine. People who were putting off checkups are finally making appointments. This thought helped Catherine through the more difficult moments of treatment, when the fatigue hit harder than expected, when simple tasks became exhausting. When she looked in the mirror and saw how pale her skin had become, she reminded herself that her experience was serving a purpose beyond her own healing. William closed his laptop and moved his chair closer to hers. How are you feeling? Tired, Catherine admitted, but oddly peaceful. Is that strange? Nothing about you is strange, William said, taking her hand carefully, mindful of the IV line. You're the strongest person I know. Catherine squeezed his hand gently. I don't feel strong all the time. Sometimes I feel scared and sad and angry that this is happening to us. That's normal, William said. Mom felt all those things too, though her challenges were different. The important thing is that you don't have to feel strong every minute. You just have to keep going. Through the window, Catherine could see other patients walking in the hospital garden with family members. Some were clearly going through chemotherapy, wearing scarves or hats, moving slowly but steadily. Others looked healthier, perhaps visiting for follow-up appointments or accompanying loved ones. All of them were part of the same community now, people touched by cancer, fighting their own battles with quiet courage. A soft knock on the door interrupted her thoughts. Dr. Chen entered with a warm smile, carrying a tablet and wearing scrubs decorated with cheerful cartoon animals. How are we doing today, Catherine? She asked, using the informal name Catherine had requested from all her medical team. Better than I expected, honestly, Catherine replied. The anti-nausea medication is working well. Dr. Chen checked the monitors and made notes on her tablet. Your blood work from earlier this week looks excellent. Your body is responding very well to the treatment. I know it doesn't always feel that way when you're tired, but the medical indicators are all positive. This was the news Catherine most wanted to hear. Not because she doubted her treatment would work, but because she wanted to be able to share good progress reports with all the people who were following her journey. She felt a responsibility to the cancer patients who had written to tell her that her courage gave them strength. If she was going to be a public face of cancer treatment, she wanted to show that recovery was possible. "When do you think I might be able to return to some public duties?" Catherine asked. Dr. Chen considered the question carefully. "Let's focus on completing this round of treatment first. But I will say that many of my patients find that returning to meaningful activities, gradually and carefully, actually helps with both physical and emotional healing." After Dr. Chen left, Catherine spent some time reading through the messages that continued to arrive. Her secretary had started organizing them by category: medical professionals sharing encouragement, cancer patients and survivors offering support, parents explaining how Catherine's honesty had helped them talk to their children about illness, and hundreds of simple notes from people around the world just wanting her to know they cared. One letter particularly touched her. It was from a teenage girl named Sophie in Birmingham, whose mother was also undergoing cancer treatment. "Your Royal Highness," Sophie had written in careful handwriting, "my mom has been sick for 6 months and I was really scared to tell my friends because I didn't want them to treat me differently. But after you talked about telling Prince George and Princess Charlotte, I realized that keeping it secret was making everything harder. I told my best friend yesterday and she gave me the biggest hug and said she wanted to help however she could. Thank you for showing me that being honest about scary things can actually make them less scary." Catherine read the letter twice, then carefully folded it and put it in her bag. This was why the announcement had been worth all the loss of privacy, all the global attention, all the speculation and analysis. If her experience could help one teenage girl feel less alone, then everything else was worthwhile. As the chemotherapy session continued, Catherine found herself thinking about her children. They had adapted to her treatment schedule, with the resilience that children often show in difficult situations. They understood that Mummy had appointments that made her tired, that sometimes she needed to rest more than usual, that the family's routine had changed temporarily. But they had also seen something important: their parents handling a crisis with honesty, teamwork, and determination. They had learned that problems don't disappear when you ignore them, but they become more manageable when you face them directly and ask for help when you need it. Charlotte had surprised Catherine the week before by bringing her a drawing she had made at school. It showed the whole family holding hands outside a hospital, with a rainbow overhead and the words, "Mummy is brave," written in bright purple crayon. "My teacher asked us to draw our heroes," Charlotte had explained. "I drew our family because we're all being brave together." The treatment session was almost finished when William's phone buzzed with a text from their nanny. The children were home from school and asking if they could video call to say hello. Catherine nodded, and within moments 3 young faces appeared on the phone screen. "Mummy," Louis called out, waving enthusiastically. "How are the medicine doctors today?" "Very nice," Catherine replied, smiling at her youngest son's phrasing. "How was school?" George, ever practical, wanted to know when she would be home for dinner. Charlotte had news about a school project she was working on about people who help others. Even through the phone screen, their energy and normalcy lifted Catherine's spirits. As the call ended and the chemotherapy session concluded, Catherine felt grateful for the strange way this challenge had clarified what mattered most. Family, health, the opportunity to help others, the kindness of strangers, the skill of medical professionals. These were the things that sustained her through difficult days. The public attention would continue, and the recovery process would have ups and downs. But Catherine was beginning to understand that her journey through cancer treatment wasn't just about getting well. It was about showing the world that healing happens not in isolation, but in community, surrounded by love and support and hope. 2 months into her treatment, Catherine woke up one morning feeling different. Not worse, but not the familiar tired but managing feeling she had grown used to. She lay still for a moment, trying to identify what had changed when she realized what it was. She felt hungry, really hungry, for the first time in weeks. William was already awake beside her, reading the morning news on his tablet with the volume turned low. He had developed a routine of checking the children's schedules, reviewing his own commitments and scanning the headlines before Catherine woke up, trying to filter out anything that might add stress to her day. "Good morning," she said softly, and he immediately set the tablet aside and turned to face her. "How are you feeling?" Catherine sat up slowly, testing her energy level. I think I want pancakes. William's face broke into the biggest smile she had seen from him in months. For weeks, her appetite had been unpredictable, and meals had become a careful negotiation between what her body could tolerate and what would provide proper nutrition. The fact that she was specifically craving something, and something as cheerful as pancakes, felt like a small victory. Then pancakes it is, William said. I'll wake the children. They'll be thrilled to have their Sunday morning tradition back. As William headed toward the children's rooms, Catherine stood and walked to the window. The garden outside was showing signs of late spring turning toward summer. The daffodils had given way to tulips, and she could see the first roses beginning to bud on the climber by the garden wall. She realized this was the first morning in months that she had looked outside and felt curious about the garden rather than simply noting the weather. The first morning she had felt connected to the changing seasons rather than focused inward on how her body was feeling. It was a small sign, but an important one. Breakfast with her family confirmed that something had shifted. Catherine managed a full stack of pancakes and actually enjoyed the taste. The children chattered about their plans for the day, and she found herself genuinely interested in their stories rather than having to work to focus through fatigue. "Mummy, you look different today," Charlotte observed with her usual perceptiveness. "Different how?" Catherine asked. "More like regular Mummy," Charlotte said, then immediately looked worried. "I mean, you've been regular Mummy this whole time, but—" "I know what you mean, sweetheart," Catherine said, reaching over to squeeze her daughter's hand. "I feel a bit more like regular Mummy today, too." After breakfast, Catherine made a decision that surprised even herself. She asked William to call her protection officers and arrange for a private visit to the hospital's pediatric cancer ward. It wasn't an official engagement, wouldn't be announced to the press, and wouldn't have any formal photography. She just wanted to spend some time with children who were going through their own treatment journeys. "Are you sure you're feeling up to it?" William asked gently. Catherine considered the question carefully. "I think I need to do it. For them, but also for me. I've been thinking about those children so much during my own treatment. I want to see them, to let them know they're not forgotten." The visit was arranged quickly and quietly. Catherine wore simple jeans and a comfortable sweater, the kind of outfit that would help children see her as a regular person, rather than a formal royal visitor. She brought no gifts or cameras, just herself and her genuine desire to connect. The pediatric ward at the Royal Marsden was bright and cheerful, decorated with colorful artwork and equipped with play areas designed to help young patients and their families feel as normal as possible during treatment. When Catherine arrived, the medical staff were prepared but not formal. They had been told this was a personal visit by someone who understood what their patients were experiencing. Her first conversation was with 8-year-old Aiden, who was sitting in the playroom working on a puzzle while his chemotherapy drip provided his treatment. He looked up when Catherine sat down beside him, and his eyes widened with recognition. "Are you the princess who's getting medicine like me?" he asked directly. Catherine smiled at his straightforward approach. "Yes, I am. What kind of puzzle are you working on?" "It's dinosaurs," Aiden said, showing her the box. "My dad said dinosaurs were very strong and brave, like kids who get cancer medicine." "I think your dad is absolutely right," Catherine said, picking up a puzzle piece. "Do you mind if I help? I love dinosaurs." As they worked on the puzzle together, Aiden talked about his treatment with the matter-of-fact acceptance that children often show in difficult situations. He explained that some days were harder than others, that he missed playing football with his friends, but that he was getting better and the doctors were very nice. "Do you get scared sometimes?" Aiden asked her. Catherine paused, holding a puzzle piece that might fit the Triceratops' tail. "Yes, I do get scared sometimes. But then I remember that I have very good doctors taking care of me, just like you do." "And your family helps too?" Aiden continued. "Definitely. My husband and children help me feel brave." "Who helps you feel brave?" Aiden pointed to a photo taped to his IV pole showing him with his parents and younger sister at a beach. "My whole family. And the nurses here are really nice. And now I know a real princess gets the same medicine as me, so it must be pretty good medicine." Catherine spent the next 2 hours moving quietly through the ward, talking with children and their families, playing games, reading stories, and simply being present. Each conversation was different, but they all shared common themes: the children's remarkable resilience, their families' fierce love and determination, and the skilled compassion of the medical staff caring for them. One conversation particularly stayed with her. 12-year-old Maya was nearing the end of her treatment and had started a project, documenting the stories of other young patients through drawings and interviews. "I want to show people that kids with cancer are still just kids," Maya explained, showing Catherine her notebook full of colorful portraits and handwritten stories. "We're not just sick kids. We're funny and smart and have dreams just like everyone else." Catherine studied the portraits, smiling faces under baseball caps and colorful headscarves, children playing games and laughing with siblings, young patients celebrating treatment milestones with medical teams who had become like family. "This is incredible, Maya," Catherine said genuinely. "Have you thought about sharing these stories more widely? I think lots of people would benefit from seeing cancer through your eyes." Maya's face lit up. "Could I really do that? Would people want to see them?" "I think they absolutely would," Catherine said, "and I'd be honored to help you find ways to share them if you'd like." As Catherine prepared to leave the hospital that day, she felt energized in a way she hadn't experienced since before her diagnosis. Being with the children had reminded her of something important. Healing wasn't just about medical treatment. It was also about connection, purpose, and the ability to find meaning in difficult experiences. Dr. Chen met with Catherine privately before she left. "How did today feel?" she asked. "Like I'm starting to feel like myself again," Catherine replied honestly. "Is that normal at this stage of treatment?" "Very normal," Dr. Chen assured her. "Many patients find that around the halfway point, their bodies start adjusting to the treatment and their energy begins to return. It's also common for patients to feel ready to reconnect with activities that give their lives meaning." "I want to do more visits like this," Catherine said. "Not formal engagements, just spending time with people who understand what this journey is like." Dr. Chen nodded approvingly. "That sounds like excellent medicine to me, both for you and for the people you'll visit." That evening, as Catherine sat with her family for dinner, she felt more present and engaged than she had in months. The children sensed the change and were more animated, sharing stories and jokes and plans for the upcoming week. "Mummy seems really happy tonight," George observed to his father as they cleared the dinner dishes. William smiled, watching Catherine help Louis with his reading homework, while Charlotte showed her a dance she had learned at school. "I think Mummy is remembering why she loves what she does," he said. "And that's helping her get better." As the family settled into their evening routine, Catherine reflected on how much her perspective had shifted over the past few months. The cancer diagnosis had initially felt like an interruption of her life and work. Now she was beginning to see it as something different, an opportunity to connect with people in a deeper, more authentic way than formal royal duties typically allowed. She was still a patient, still in treatment, still facing uncertainty about her complete recovery, but she was also rediscovering herself as someone who could offer hope and understanding to others facing similar challenges. It was a role she had never expected to play, but one that felt more meaningful than any she had experienced before. 6 months after her announcement, Catherine stood in front of her bathroom mirror, getting ready for her first official public engagement since beginning treatment. Her hair had grown back softer and slightly different than before, and she had chosen to wear it in a simple style that showed the change rather than hiding it. Her dress was a favorite shade of blue that brought out her eyes, which were bright and clear again after months of treatment-related fatigue. Today's engagement was carefully chosen, the reopening of a children's hospital wing that specialized in cancer treatment. It felt like the perfect way to return to public duties, combining her renewed energy with her deepened understanding of what families facing cancer needed most. William appeared in the doorway, adjusting his tie. "Ready for this?" Catherine turned from the mirror and he saw something in her expression that took him back to their early days together. A confidence and joy that had been temporarily dimmed but never extinguished. "More than ready," she said. "I feel like I have so much more to offer now than I did before." The drive to the hospital was different from royal engagements in the past. Instead of reviewing briefing notes about who she would meet and what she should say, Catherine found herself thinking about the children and families she would encounter, wondering about their stories, hoping she could provide some comfort or encouragement. When their car pulled up to the hospital, Catherine could see the crowd waiting outside. There were families with children, hospital staff, local officials, and members of the media. But her attention was immediately drawn to a small group of young patients in wheelchairs and with IV poles, who had been brought outside to meet her. As she stepped out of the car, the crowd's reaction was unlike anything she had experienced before. The applause was warm and sustained, but underneath it was something deeper, a kind of collective relief and gratitude that seemed to rise from the gathered people like heat from summer pavement. A little girl named Emma, who was 7 years old and halfway through her own cancer treatment, had been chosen to present Catherine with flowers. As Emma walked slowly toward her, wearing a bright yellow dress and a knitted cap decorated with butterflies, Catherine knelt down to meet her at eye level. "Thank you for being so brave," Emma said in a clear, strong voice that carried to the crowd. "You helped my mummy not be so scared when I got sick." Catherine accepted the flowers and gave Emma a gentle hug. "Thank you for being brave too," she whispered. "You and all the other children here are the real heroes." The moment was captured by photographers, but for Catherine, the cameras disappeared. All that mattered was this child who understood what it meant to face medical uncertainty with courage, and whose mother had found strength in Catherine's decision to share her own journey publicly. Inside the hospital, Catherine toured the new facilities with a different perspective than she would have had 6 months earlier. She understood now what it felt like to sit in chemotherapy chairs, to wait for test results, to balance hope with realistic expectations. When she spoke with medical staff, it wasn't just polite conversation. She could genuinely appreciate the skill and compassion required for their work. Dr. James Miller, the head of pediatric oncology, walked her through the new treatment rooms. "These spaces are designed to feel as unhospital-like as possible," he explained. "Children respond better to treatment when they feel safe and comfortable." Catherine studied the bright murals on the walls, the comfortable seating for family members, the advanced medical equipment that had been integrated seamlessly into cheerful, child-friendly spaces. "It makes such a difference," she agreed, feeling cared for as a whole person, not just as a patient. In the teenage ward, Catherine met 15-year-old Marcus, who was documenting his treatment experience through photography. He had been inspired by her public announcement to start a blog about being a young person with cancer, and his honest, humorous writing had gained a large following online. "Your announcement changed everything for me," Marcus told her as they looked through his photographs together. "Before that, I felt like I had to pretend everything was fine, like having cancer was something to be embarrassed about. But when you talked about it so openly, I realized that being honest about the hard stuff doesn't make you weak. It makes you real." Catherine looked at Marcus's photographs, images of treatment rooms and medical equipment, but also pictures of friends visiting, nurses laughing, family celebrations of treatment milestones. "You're helping so many people by sharing your story," she told him. "Sometimes the most important thing we can do is help others feel less alone." The highlight of the visit was the opening ceremony for the new Family Support Center. Catherine had been asked to cut the ribbon and make a brief speech, but as she stood before the gathered crowd of patients, families, medical staff, and supporters, she found herself setting aside her prepared remarks. "6 months ago, I stood in my garden and told the world that I was beginning cancer treatment," she began, her voice clear and strong. "I was scared, uncertain, and worried about how my family would cope with what lay ahead. Today I stand here not as someone who has simply survived a medical challenge, but as someone who has learned that healing happens in community." She gestured toward the families around her. "Every person here has taught me something about courage. The children who face treatment with such remarkable strength. The parents who find ways to stay hopeful when their hearts are breaking. The medical professionals who combine extraordinary skill with genuine compassion. The friends and family members who show up, day after day with love and support." Catherine paused, looking out at the crowd. She could see people wiping their eyes but also smiling, nodding, feeling recognized and appreciated for their own journeys through difficult times. "This new center represents something important," she continued. "It says that healing isn't just about medical treatment, though we're grateful for the excellent medical care available here. Healing is also about feeling supported, understood, and connected to others who share your experience." After the ribbon was cut and the celebration moved inside, Catherine spent additional time with families. Not because it was scheduled, but because she wanted to. She sat with parents in the waiting room, played board games with young patients, and listened to teenagers talk about their hopes for the future beyond treatment. As the day concluded and Catherine prepared to leave, Dr. Miller pulled her aside. "I wanted you to know," he said quietly, "that since your announcement, we've seen a significant increase in people coming in for early screenings. Your decision to share your experience publicly has quite literally saved lives." Catherine felt the weight and privilege of that impact. Her personal medical journey had become something larger, a catalyst for important conversations about health, a source of comfort for people facing similar challenges, and an inspiration for others to prioritize their own well-being. On the drive home, Catherine and William sat quietly for a few minutes, both processing the intensity and joy of the day. "How do you feel?" William asked. Catherine thought for a moment. "Like myself again, but also like a different version of myself, someone who understands things I never understood before, who can connect with people in ways I never could before." "You've always been good at connecting with people," William said. "Yes, but this feels different, more real somehow. Less about being polite and charming, more about being genuinely present with people who are going through hard things." That evening, as Catherine helped her children with homework and prepared for a normal family dinner, she reflected on how much had changed since that gray morning when she first received her diagnosis. The fear and uncertainty of those early days had been replaced by something unexpected, a sense of purpose and connection that felt deeper than anything she had experienced in her royal role before. Her treatment would continue for a few more weeks, and there would be ongoing monitoring and follow-up care for years to come. But Catherine now understood that this experience hadn't been an interruption of her life's work. It had been a redirection toward a more meaningful version of that work. As she tucked her children into bed that night, Charlotte asked, "Mummy, are you all better now?" Catherine sat on the edge of her daughter's bed, considering the question carefully. "I'm getting better every day, sweetheart, and I think I'm also becoming a better person, someone who understands more about what really matters and how to help people who are going through difficult times." "So the medicine made your body better and your heart bigger?" Charlotte asked with 9-year-old logic. Catherine smiled, leaning down to kiss her daughter goodnight. "I think that's exactly right." Outside London settled into evening, but around the world people continued to be touched by Catherine's story. Her quiet journey through cancer treatment had become something larger than one person's medical experience. It had become a testament to the healing power of honesty, community, and hope, showing millions that it's possible to face life's greatest challenges with grace, courage, and an open heart.